Welcome to Decentralized News. If you're interested in Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies, DeFi, and the macro news that affects it, welcome in. This is not financial advice. A broad range of topics and opinions will be given freely today, so please do your own research. I'm your host, Pyre DeVries, by the way. This is Ozzy. Let's get started with some of the biggest headlines. Samsung phones, their crypto wallet is expanding. Samsung to launch its mobile wallet app in 8 more countries, so expanding one that exists. India, Australia, Singapore, Taiwan, Hong Kong. All right, Apple, where's your mobile wallet? Do you see this story?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's making it even more seamless, and it's rolling out in some big markets. India, Canada, Australia, and Brazil are pretty big adopters of crypto. We'll talk about Canada's adoption of crypto a little bit later on in the show, but this is pretty interesting. And by introducing it to the mainstream, it's not just some weird company that is making a crypto wallet. Oh, everyone knows who Samsung is. People will feel a little bit more safe than MetaMask. How do I know that it's safe? So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, and just the idea of you use your cell phone for everything and just to have it more adoption connected, especially in a country like the one that stands out is Brazil, just because of the need for banking the unbanked and those kind of use cases. It's really exciting to me.
Not only that, but they're also really big proponents of crypto. And they passed a pro digital asset bill not too many weeks ago. And a lot of crypto payment solutions have been first announced and first tested in Brazil slash Argentina. So in that region, it's pretty awesome to see this kind of adoption.
Yeah, it's exciting news. Another big headline was this Bitzlato. Jay had a big announced a big press conference, and they announced that the DOJ, working with FinCEN, that's the regular enforcement arm of the Treasury, arrested the founder of Bitzlato, a cryptocurrency exchange they said had been a financial haven for criminals and ransomware, Russia linked, dark web, and they're dismantling Bitzlato. This was a bit of a head scratcher because no one had really heard of this exchange. So why make a big deal of this? All I could think of was more about the narrative and the details. Then it comes out that Binance was the top counterparty receiving from Bitzlato. And it got me thinking, are they setting up an argument for regulatory enforcement against Binance? Because they're now the largest central exchange, and US enforcement agencies are going to want a piece of that revenue. In the end, it's just a greed thing. Um, and add in the possibility of SBF, who was taken out by CZ in a plea deal, motivated, maybe Binance may be too big of a target to miss. What do you think?
I think it's totally possible. Bitzlato was a total dark horse. Everyone was thinking it was Binance or there was going to be some really big charges against against FTX. No one really knew it was, or Genesis and Gemini. It hurt the market
There
as
were
soon
some
as
funny
they
memes
announced.
around that. Sorry to interrupt. There were some funny memes around that about how there's all these explosions going on. It's, oh, we'll defend you against Bitzlato or whatever this is.
Yeah, it was really super weird. It was like built up as this huge announcement. Everyone in the crypto market was freaking out. And then it kind of became a nothing sandwich. I totally agree that it could line up with just trying to create a little bit of that narrative around money laundering issues that Binance has been targeted for a little bit in
Yeah.
recent months. And so
Yeah,
this
they're
can
under
be
investigation. Or
yes and
I think
no.
it could be like money laundering, like the investigation that's going on.
Yeah. But it was the same thing. Funnily enough, Coinbase got fined 100 million essentially not too long ago for inadequate user verification. And so this is probably the same kind of fine that we might see Binance get, just that slap on the wrist for, hey, maybe you weren't verifying well enough and you were taking in funds from this sketchy cybercrime haven crypto exchange. So it's
Yeah, not
interesting.
necessarily to completely shut it down, but just make sure that they're can find them.
Yeah, go couple 100 million. Here's a fine. Half of it
Yeah,
goes
here,
to us, half of it goes to ensuring
how about a
compliance.
billion? How about a record fine? Let's go for a record. You're the biggest one. You can handle it.
Exactly. So let's
Yeah.
move from what Genesis has finally declared bankruptcy. Um, Chapter 11, they've got 5.1 billion in liabilities. They lost at least 1 billion in the whole FTX debacle, and they're basically trying to just clean up their books, figure out what they're doing to get their creditors to pay back their creditors. They've been having a pretty public fight with Gemini, who's one of their top creditors, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Yeah, it was the interesting thing to me was that the market pumped. Like the news came out and the market pumped. And it just made me wonder, does this signal that all the fallout that started all the way back with Terra Luna and just BlockFi, Voyager, Celsius, FTX, does this signal that the fallout is priced in DCG and the 600K may be considered safe and will not hit the market? That's what it made me wonder.
Yeah, it's good that it's Genesis and not DCG that's filing for bankruptcy because um, by Genesis filing for bankruptcy, it means that Grayscale isn't necessarily at risk. When it's DCG, then Grayscale would be at risk. Grayscale is part of DCG's portfolio. But even then, Grayscale is such a cash cow for DCG that it wouldn't likely see liquidation from Grayscale. Their trust would have to be returned to whoever owns it, and only the portion that belongs to DCG could technically be sold, which is about 600,000.
Yeah, and they do have a lot of incentive just because of the profit, the revenue they generate to keep it going. So
Yeah, they made
believe
1.5
that.
billion in 5 years, and it's just been going up year over year. So I really don't foresee them liquidating other things. They might liquidate, for example, CoinDesk, which we'll talk about a little bit further, and a few of their other assets.
Just maybe signs that the bottom is in or developing. But let's look at some of the macro pressures that may affect it too. We have the big Fed meeting and rate change coming up in 11 days now, February 1st. It looks like the markets are expecting a 0.25% raise.
Yeah, 0.25 is starting to become the consensus. It's about 75% towards 0.25 basis points and 25% leaning towards half a basis point. I'm leaning towards half a basis point. I would
Mm.
not be surprised if Jerome Powell continues to go strong against inflation despite more recent economic data, because he'll say that it's too recent and we need more data, more consistent data of showing the same trend before he wants to let up. And so I'm a little bit worried about whether or not the markets are going to take a dive when on February 1st they make that decision to go maybe to half a basis point. I think 3/4 is out of the question, but half a basis point is definitely still on the horizon.
Are there any reports coming out or data that the Fed's going to see that you're watching? That might.
So this week we've got initial jobless claims. So
Mm.
the unemployment data, we're waiting to see if we're still below forecast. On 2 weeks ago, jobless claims were around 190,000. Everyone's expecting just shy of 200,000, but we probably won't. We've got a feeling that we won't see a huge jump in jobless claims, so that could be another bullish sign. On Thursday again, there's gonna be new home sales for December. So last announcement was 640,000, and they're expecting 615,000. Uh, so that's another one. There's manufacturing on Tuesday, and we're hoping to see manufacturing PMI go up, but that's not guaranteed. And then there's some PCE data on Friday. So lots of little data to keep an eye on. I'm optimistic that we're going to see that inflation is coming down and the economy is strong.
Also affecting the broader market is we're starting to see some layoffs in tech. Microsoft, Amazon, two of the world's biggest companies, have begun the firing of 28,000 employees. I saw a tweet or somewhere Google plans to cut around 12,000 jobs worldwide, or 6% of its staff.
Yeah, that's another big thing. And like we mentioned last week, we do got tech earnings coming up. And so it's important to keep our eye on that and see what happens with tech earnings in the next week or so. Very first kind of lines up with earnings week. Important to keep
That's
an
one
eye
of
out
my
on that.
bigger questions is there's a lot of talk about the cycles that Bitcoin cryptocurrency markets go in, but it's never really tried to come out of the cycle in this kind of environment and potentially global recession environment. So it's an interesting dynamic as far as this cycle is concerned.
Definitely. Each cycle is different but the same, and we'll see how everything goes.
Let's see some other signs in the equity markets. Mining ETFs lead equity markets. So BTC mining ETFs are the best performing class in equity markets to start the year. I thought that was pretty interesting, but they were very depressed asset. They were
They
kind
were
of all
down
on the top.
80%.
Yeah. They took a big hit in the bear market. It was a great opportunity, I think, for people who got in.
If
If
you
I
were to
followed
buy at
it.
the start of the year, like if that's what you were to buy on January 1st, you would be up a significant percentage. It helps that Bitcoin's price has surged as well. That always helps Bitcoin mining companies because the higher the price of Bitcoin, the more profitable they are usually. And so that's something to keep an eye at, like a factor as well. But considering we were talking about how in poor shape Bitcoin mining companies were in a couple episodes back, this is a
Yeah,
good
this next
sign.
story actually builds on that. So there was like 97% of mined Bitcoins getting sold, just getting immediately back on the market. But the sell pressure on BTC miners possibly easing. This is the Will Clement tweet. The heavy sell pressure from Bitcoin miners that has barraged the market for the last 4 months has finally subsided for now, when he has some on-chain data to back it up. So that was interesting to see some data that supports that. Some sell pressure coming off of the market, maybe help explain this recent rally a little bit.
Yeah. If Bitcoin miners don't have to sell their Bitcoin, there's one less source of Bitcoin being dumped on the market, which is perfect and great for Bitcoin. So very, very interesting to see if this trend will continue along with the Bitcoin mining ETFs.
Yeah. And this story is a little bit older, but this was about sell pressures, Silvergate withdrawals. But this story is about a week old now. But linked to FTX investors, Silvergate investors rushed to the door to the tune of 8.1 billion in a December report. Yeah. So they had to sell a bunch of assets.
They also are looking at some kind of bankruptcy, going through some court filings right now, trying to figure out the best way forward for them. We've talked about how they're trying to figure out their path, and
Uh,
this rush for withdrawals is a sign of them really trying to figure out what they're doing.
I guess they took a loan that was connected to the US government. I'm not sure, to help protect this, but there's also some FUD, like US senators want more clarity in regards to FTX. So they're a little bit connected to FTX. Appears to be at the center of improper transfers of customer funds. And there was this interesting quote from SBF before the whole fraud went down. Life as a crypto firm can be divided up into before Silvergate and after Silvergate. It's hard to overstate how much it revolutionized banking on blockchain companies. So they may be involved and face some hard times ahead. Yeah, for sure.
That's it. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how everything changes. But lining up with our Bitzlato announcement was a Bank of Japan announcement that everyone was waiting for.
Yeah.
Bank of Japan has had a pretty loose monetary policy compared to the world, and everyone was expecting them to pivot heading into this next announcement, but they didn't. And that gave the market a little bit of a dive. They're continuing to buy up bonds, 10-year bonds. At this point, 6% of their total GDP in 1 month to try and keep those bonds in the target range. And so this is concerning for the market just because you don't really know.
They're not following expectations. It seems like the market always hates that. And the market seems to be demanding that they pivot and they're just,
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting, and we'll
I,
see
yeah,
how that story continues.
I think there's a
There,
new thing over in Japan. I think there's a new Fed chairman coming in. So there's some expectations that it will finally change, and maybe there's a new headpiece to take on a new tactic, but we'll see how it plays out. The market still seems to be demanding that they pivot, though.
With that said, the Reserve Bank of India, their governor has called for an outright ban on crypto. India has not been the most crypto friendly country, with 50% straight taxes on crypto transactions to now this call for bans. It's nuts. Whereas a lot of the world is starting to warm up to crypto, India is taking a complete different and backward stance.
Yeah, they really do FUD it, just like it's going to zero. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's nothing. Yeah, it's just the worst rhetoric. Seems like comes from their reserve bank leaders. And they're also launching their own CBDCs to exercise like a level of control over the crypto market. And
Yeah, really
we're not,
trying to push control onto their citizens. They want their citizens under their umbrella, and their citizens are obviously adopting crypto. And there's tons of bankless individuals in India, and so there's a huge use case. So I don't understand the
well, this
attitude
is
of India.
a lot of the global growth come out of India. It'll be a huge, or it'll be very interesting to watch, especially how Bitcoin, which is potentially can't be stopped, that idea, if it's this big developing country that really needs it, but they don't want it, how it's able to grow or expand in that, if it's able to. It'll be interesting to watch.
India was one of the countries that's being targeted by Samsung, which kind of just shows the importance of India and the level of adoption going on in India. And so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. At one point, they'll probably end up having to pivot. There's just no no way that position is tenable. It's like China, who's flip flopped 4 or 5 times about crypto.
Well, speaking of their neighbors, and I mean, all in the BRICS, right? Russia is working with Iran on a gold-backed stablecoin. This was confirmed by the member of the Duma committee, that kind of like their Congress on information policy. Also on November 23rd, Russia's Duma stated work on a draft amendment to the digital financial assets law to regulate crypto and create a national crypto exchange. And this was also confirmed by someone in the Duma. And this is from a party member that is in Vladimir Putin's party that holds 72% of the Duma. And in April 2022, the International Monetary Fund warned that Russia could use crypto to get around Western sanctions. So they are motivated, basically, potentially.
That's pretty. There's been rumors about Russia and Iran working on stablecoins, and BRICS as a whole working on a gold backed dollar. And this is confirming and also showing that they're moving into the digital space, which is very interesting. So,
Yeah.
two countries really trying to skirt.
And one of the biggest banks, Spur Bank in Russia, is also issuing gold-backed coins. They're going to launch their own stable coin. So the digital token will not be a cryptocurrency, but instead a tokenized form of the ruble. The company hold on that companies hold in their Spur accounts. The stablecoin will allow companies to use smart contracts on the Spur platform. Yeah, and if the project gets the green light, it's expected to launch sometime this spring. And Russia also passed its first law regulating digital tokens last fall, detailing criteria and regulation process for companies that want to issue digital assets. So yeah, they just seem to be embracing and getting it. This almost sounds like they're getting ready for like getting the institution and the banks ready to get involved.
Yeah, they're really moving. They're being first movers in a lot of senses, just because I think of all the sanctions against them for the war in Ukraine. They're really becoming first movers because they have a use case and they have a need. At the same time, DCG is suspending dividends. Their Genesis unit has declared bankruptcy. DCG is still trying to fill the holes over at Genesis. They're
Cutting
trying to,
costs, firing people, stop dividends, anything they can do. And that's something they can do. No
yeah,
dividends.
they're trying to strengthen the bank balance sheet and reduce expenses and make sure they have liquidity. So it's a big move from DCG and Barry Silbert as they're navigating this space. They
Yeah, and there was
continue to
some
be a
people.
big story, I think, going on as more
Yeah,
of
there
their
was some.
assets go up for sale.
There were some big names interested in some of their assets. Tron founder interested in DCG assets.
Yeah. Justin Sun, who is Tron's founder and a advisor at Huobi Exchange, who everyone thought was going to be collapsing, they're expressing interest in buying some of the assets. So this is a whole flip of the story. Everyone was like, oh my God, Huobi's going to disappear. They're going to collapse. They're going to pause withdrawals after they laid off a bunch of staff and told staff that they were going to be paying them in stable coins rather than the US dollar. And then, hey, we're interested in some of these assets. So a change of tone.
Yeah, maybe this is all for narrative, just throwing his name around. Oh, I can do it. But there's nothing really behind it. See, there's some other news at the whole FTX, SBF. But a third of the members of Congress accepted donations from SBF and Alameda executives.
That's nuts. A third. I thought maybe a quarter or a sixth of Congress might have taken donations, but a third, that's a significant number.
That's a bunch of people with their hands in the cookie jar over there. We'll see how all these investigations play out. Maybe that's part of the reason why they're talking about Bitzlato. It's just, don't mind this. We're doing things over here. We're shutting stuff down. Don't worry about what's going on in your own house.
Yeah. Russia's the only one that's using crypto for bad, guys. That's the only one. We're not doing anything. Don't worry.
Yeah. Let's get into some more fun news. Go bullish adoption news. Cash App adopts free and instant Bitcoin payments. Cash App announced it's integrated with the Lightning Network, allowing its US users to send Bitcoin free to anyone worldwide. That sounds pretty good. That sounds killer appish for certain people.
And free Bitcoin payments is pretty interesting. Definitely competing in with Venmo and other kind of apps. The easier it is to do it for cheaper using crypto, I think the better.
Oh, yeah. This Lightning Network and expansion, it's Bitcoin becoming a form of payment. It's like one of the big knocks against, it's too expensive to do a transaction. But as the Lightning Network expands and it can be offered for free by a company like Cash App, you mean I can just send money literally on the opposite side of the world for nothing? I don't know. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, it shuts down all these like companies like Wise or FX Exchange because you can just sell this Bitcoin that your family member from Canada sent you to India.
What about like a protocol like Stellar or XRP that want to be cross-border payment? What does that do to their use case too? How people move money around.
I guess it'll depend. It'll depend on security and everything. So, things to keep an eye on, that's for sure.
It is also will open access to its crypto wallet to 1 million users. So it had a beta test going, and now it's going to users on the wait list, and they're launching it.
Yeah.
More adoption.
That's it. Robinhood. Everyone likes to laugh at Robinhood, but lots of people were buying stocks with Robinhood. So
it's easy to use, more for the ease of use and stuff like that. So maybe the fees will come down over time. I think the fees are kind of high there.
At the same time, German online bank N26 to expand crypto trading. They recently announced that they would expand the list of countries where its customers may trade cryptocurrencies. So Germany and Switzerland. So that's just making access to crypto that much easier. If you can make accessing easier, there's going to be more money. There's going to be more liquidity, and that'll help the market.
Yeah, it seems like it's both helping retail customers get involved, but it's also a sign of institutional adoption just because of allowing it. So double bonus. Central Bank of Canada reports 13% of Canadians own Bitcoin. Let's go, Canada.
Yeah.
Looks like the numbers are up a lot from 2021. They only had 4%. So this is over 2022, which was not a particularly good year. This was bear market and it went up. So what's it going to be like at the end of 2023? That was the question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, I think.
Are people writing about it out there? Do you hear people talking about it?
People have started talking about it a lot more. It's just more and more of a conversation. I'm actually meeting up with a buddy from high school and that I hadn't talked to in a while, but I ran into him in a Bitcoin Facebook group. And so we're meeting up for beers to go talk about crypto. I think Bitcoin and crypto are just becoming more conversations in Canada. And since it's a smaller country, just the word gets around easier and faster.
That'd be interesting, just like walking around in public. So the last bull run and people are excited and asking questions. And then bear market, nobody talks about it. Just like my general experience, no one's asking me about it. They know I'm interested in it, whatever. But I feel like then it'll be interesting to watch how the sentiment changes if and when we enter the next bull market.
And then the Seoul government has officially launched its first metaverse project. So that's interesting. Korea getting into the metaverse.
Yeah, official Web 3.0 adoption. It's always good to see.
And it's
Yeah,
government
definitely.
adoption too. So it's not
Yeah,
just any adoption.
I imagine my son will spend a lot of time in the metaverse. He'll probably go to work that way, shopping.
I've actually seen a couple of Reddit threads on the Canadian government public servants subreddit talking about how we should just all go work in the metaverse instead of going back to the office.
Yeah,
S-
I think it's not that hard to imagine, honestly. And like, I remember when like COVID first hit, I was talking to this professor and he worked at the school and he's one of the good things about it was they have all this technology to work and not have to come to the campus that they just weren't using. It was just traditional to come to school that they were forced to use. And he was just talking about one of the benefits kind of came out of that, just utilizing the technology. Metaverse is just an extension of that. But
Yeah,
yeah, we'll see how it's embraced. We can move on into some of the chain news. Binance, it seems like every week another country approved to operate in Poland, continue to grow.
that's pretty awesome. Good for Binance. The
Yeah.
more that it can operate legally, the better, because there's less risks that way. We're not going to have some black swan event because everything is being done in compliance. It might have a fine or whatever because, oh, you guys didn't do that. So, but in the end, you're
Yeah, the
legally
other
allowed to access it now.
yeah, the other interesting idea here is even if US comes after Binance, it still operates globally and it has a lot of these type of virtual asset provider registrations in other countries. It won't just disappear completely, even if the US was like, no.
Binance US is already a separate entity. So,
Right.
Binance Global, you can use it globally. Every week, there's a new country allowing it and saying it's all good.
Yeah. Polygon also had a upgrade. Now there's nothing to see here. You basically don't have to do anything. Everything's just going to get improved. And it's pretty much how it went off. It came and went smooth. The only news would have been bad news, it seems, after that one.
Yeah, but it goes to reduce gas fee spikes, and sometimes when RPC points would get really clustered and you basically couldn't make a transaction. And so its goal is to fix all of that as we move more and more into what looks like a stronger market and a more bullish market.
Yeah, I won't say always, but I've noticed I have a little more trouble with Polygon, just user interface issues, frustrations, I guess you can call it. So I can feel that. Hopefully it does improve. I don't have enough experience on it since the upgrade to say, oh yeah. But moving on to Cardano, developers have confirmed their intention to launch an algorithmic stablecoin this month, DJD. DJD is a crypto-backed, over-collateralized algorithmic stablecoin that is backed by ADA. It uses a similar form to existing stablecoins like Frax. It uses collateral from ADA and a reserve coin called Minted and Burnt to preserve the dollar peg to DJ. DJ will be over-collateralized with ADA with claims of 400 to 800% over collateralization, even with claims like that. I'm still a little surprised it's an algorithmic stablecoin just because of what happened with Terra Luna.
Yeah, it feels early for the next algorithmic stablecoin. 400 800% is great, but does that remain if ADA does not stay a stablecoin? ADA has been essentially a stablecoin. So,
Yeah.
what if ADA decides to drop some more or pump some more? What does that do to the collateralization, and like how does that all change? So, it'll be interesting. I'm not a big Cardano ecosystem user.
I think it's a dark horse in the altcoin race. Not even really a dark horse, but I think it's not financial advice, but a little bit underappreciated. And they've been steadily building in the bear market. They've been showing good signs as far as being there in the next bull run, as far as I'm concerned.
That's it. They have been building, and so I can't take that away from them. They've definitely been building because there has been announcements and they had a hard fork and all of that. And so they are doing things. Just
Yeah.
the token price, at least for a while, has not really done much. But talking about Ada, their founder, Charles Hoskinson,
Okay.
confirmed interest in acquiring CoinDesk, which is these kind of news arm for crypto. So he expressed some interest in acquiring the media outlet a few days ago, but the asking price is 200 million, and he feels like it's a little bit overpriced, and so he is going to be reviewing the books before he decides whether or not he makes a purchase.
Yeah, I read this article. The reasons he gave for overvalue was their lack of video content and metaverse presence. But there was also an extra note. He pointed out that readers could have, in terms of how he might invigorate if he bought it, readers could have a new way of interacting with the news stories through non-fungible tokens. He said it would be really cool if each story could be viewed as a living object. How that all plays out, it's hard to imagine, but just throwing the idea of an NFT in with news stories is fun to imagine.
Well, so Cointelegraph, you can collect different articles as NFTs, and so
Hmm.
that's it's something that's out there. It's not unique, but yeah,
Just saying how it might also help with verifying stories and getting people just more involved in the outcomes. So it was hard to imagine how that plays out, but it was still interesting. An improvement in media. I'm all for that. Disappointed with what I see in general.
Iota,
Uh,
Internet of Things.
yeah, they've been around and building for a long time. I guess there's an Iota 2.0 going under the radar. They seem to have been in development for a long time, but they're saying it's not a matter of if, but when now. Maybe something to keep an eye on, something going under the radar is Iota. Been around for a long time. They've been building for a long time.
Yeah, and they're moving towards full decentralization, which is pretty interesting in this 2.0 upgrade. So,
Yeah, I guess that was one of the issues with their technology, their Tangle technology. That was very centralized. So they're trying to find a way to break that up. And I guess it's been a little more complicated than I thought. But there's one more kind of chain news, Shibarium, the meme coin, Shib upgrade. Shibarium to revolutionize the Shiba ecosystem. The Shiba army can drive the Shiba price up. It's going to be a layer 2 built on the on Shibarium, which will allow development in the DeFi projects. I should be pointing out, Shibarium runs on Ethereum. It uses the Shib Bone Unleashed token. This layer 2 attempts to solve the speed, cost, and scalability issues of ETH while providing an expanded network for development into Web3 and DeFi. There is no release date announced, and devs do earn patience, but a beta version is fairly soon. There's still no official announcement, but they're teasing a beta version coming out.
interesting. Shib is another weird dark horse in this crypto bear market. They were
Yeah.
fully a meme coin. Now they're shifting. They were shifting metaverse and layer 2. So this is now layer 2. So this is interesting to see what will happen
Yeah.
with Shib.
That's a fun one to watch. Sure. All right. It's been an awesome show. Thanks for joining me today, Ozzy. I'm your host, Pirate DeVries, by the way. This is Ozzy. Thank you for listening to Decentralized. We post to YouTube first, so please consider subscribing to catch the videos as soon as they drop. Our goal is to provide unfiltered content that will help foster genuine discussions to help the entire space grow. But at the same time, this is not financial advice and we are not financial advisors. The show is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research before making any investment decisions. Thank you all very much for your support and stay tuned for the next episode. And have a good one, Ozzy. Thanks for joining me today.